All right, I think we are live. So welcome everyone to another Matt Moran motoring live stream here. Thanks to all of you who have joined in so far. Sorry, I'm a few minutes late here. My webcam was having issues for a second, but I think we're all good now. So anyway, thank you all. Hope you're having a great weekend here so far. And like all the other usual live streams here are going to go for about an hour and a half, maybe close to 2 hours, depending on how we're doing here. But as far as the whole answering thing goes, I always give priority answering anyone who does a super chat or a super thanks thing, or anyone who's a member as well. But anyway, yeah, I'm having a little bit of a tickle in my throat, so I apologize if I'm coughing and stuff more here, and that also might be part of why we don't go the full 2 hours. We'll see. But anyway, I see making it happen, starting us off here with a super sticker that I really appreciate, and he has a question here and says, or they, not sure. I said, hey Matt, love your streams. I know you will fall out of your chair, but I traded in my 2022 CT5V Blackwing for a Lexus RC350 for the wife, and I got my son the IS500. All I have left is the M5 comp. Well, that isn't too bad of a situation to be left with an M5 comp. That's still an awesome car, of course, but that's crazy though. I'd be curious to hear why you got rid of the Blackwing. I know you got some other cars out of it, but I'm surprised you chose that instead of the M5 to get rid of. And I'd love to, if you have any follow-up comments, I'll be interested to hear why you chose the M5 basically over the CT5. But everyone likes something different, so I know the M5 is probably going to be a little more comfortable and a little more luxurious, so maybe that was part of the reasoning there. But and I haven't driven the comp version, but the regular M5 was fun, but I'd go Blackwing myself. But again, everyone likes something different. And thank you so much for the very kind super sticker there as well. I really appreciate it. And Kyle and Truck Car Guy, Luke, too, Hugo, thank you all so much for joining in. So Hugo says, hey, Matt, I'm not going to miss this. I'm currently driving to South Carolina to pick up my son. Don't worry, I'll be safe. Well, thanks for joining in. And yeah, I'm assuming YouTube lets people listen to these. I don't know if it's the YouTube premium thing or if you have to you can just listen to the audio, but that's awesome. You're able to just listen in. That's it's like a old timey radio show, which is kind of fun. So Mike says, do you have any more thoughts on the 7 OEM charging network? Do you think it's a mistake for the brands who haven't switched from CCS to NACS? And do you think it could put EVgo EA out of business? I don't know. That was an interesting thing. So, there has been I think Mercedes and a few others that were saying how I think Mercedes actually, that was one of their excuses for slowing down their EV rollout, as they said the charging network just isn't good enough in North America yet. And so I'm guessing that's part of why they're doing this whole partnership, is to address those things, because they feel like it's not being done well enough. And so if things aren't being done the way you want it to, do it yourself, So I guess they're just taking matters into their own hands potentially. And so I guess that's, part of the reasoning there. I think EVgo and America, they're still going to, probably have, a good long while before they ever go out of business. If, that is something that they struggle with, if this other big partner thing, puts them out of business. But I think that they all have, a chance to thrive and, still make money doing these stations. So I feel like they can all coexist without, one putting the other out of business or anything. As far as whether it's a mistake or not, I mean, my assumption is that they will still all switch to the NACS, because the thing is, even if they are on their high horse about this new partnership with, all these charging stations, it still would be foolish if everyone else is doing NACS for these 7 companies to be a holdout and be like, no, we're sticking with CCS, even though most of these other chargers are doing, all the new stuff coming from all these companies is going to have both, aside from the Tesla network though. So I feel like deliberately excluding the Tesla network by sticking to CCS when it essentially seems to be deemed a, obsolete technology, I guess, as far as just, even though there's nothing wrong with CCS, just the way everyone's chosen to, go down that route to NACS instead. I feel like it just makes sense to switch everything to NACS. And yes, you can say, look, our charges will be better, but if you're in the middle of nowhere and you need a charge, still you can go to a Tesla station or whatever, So I think I think if they're trying to exclude Tesla or something, it's going to be a stupid thing to do. I think most likely they'll all still switch to NACS and just make sure they want to have the network set up the way they want to, because I know like Hyundai and Porsche and Audi and all them, they have the very fast charging in particular. They want to deliver those speeds that they're promising to their customers. And so, they want to make sure they have a network that will provide what people are expecting from those brands. So yeah, it's an interesting switch there, and we'll see how that plays out for them. But the more chargers out there, the better. And Making It Happen says, good point. The M5 to me was about comfort and luxury. The Blackwing is by far more fun to drive for sure, but the M5 to me as a daily just had better quality, ride quality, comfort, and audio sound. Yeah, I can appreciate that. That makes sense. I'm one of these people that I'm used to having. Like I love the GR Corolla with a base, Corolla interior and stuff. I'm happy as a clam, driving around in that. So I think it's just, what you're expecting and wanting out of a daily. And M5 is a super nice car. So I can totally understand that. Well, thanks for buying a Blackwing new at least, because at least you help Cadillac there. You supported the cause. And now someone else can get to enjoy it instead. So that's awesome. And thanks for the extra follow-up there. I was very curious. MDKN says, hi, Matt. Just went on a car rally with a ton of people. Really surprised my Kona N was keeping up pretty well with a GT350 and a C7. That's awesome. Yeah, the Konas are pretty good. The only thing I'll say, I don't know what kind of roads you're on, but I know whenever I was in the Kona N on track, chasing down Elantra N's on the drive program when that car was launched, the Kona N was really, all over the place as far as suspension tuning, compared to the Elantra. It was like night and day difference. And I felt bad because then when I was in the Elantra N on the track, I was chasing a Kona N that I was behind, unfortunately. And the guy got out after the laps, was like, I'm sorry I slowed you down, man. Like, I was working as hard as I could in that Kona, but it just, it's not to the same level as the Elantra, but it's awesome. It was able to do really well there on those back roads for you. And Kona N's are still so awesome. It's so sad that it was such a short run and there seemed like there's no successor in sight, which is really a bummer because it's just a cool, unique thing that no one else is really doing to that extent. We have the Hornet now and you have the CX-30 Turbo and, a few others, but Kona N was so cool. Carlos says, hi, Matt. Hi, everyone. Hope you've all had a good week. Yeah, hope you've had a good week. Yeah, had a good week as well, Carlos. Isaac said, Sheetz makes more money off of food than gas. They need to have a Sheetz type of store as part of these chargers. Absolutely. I totally agree, Isaac. And I think, with the big 7, OEM network there that I was talking about in this past week's update, they said that if there are not places very nearby, they will have a lot of these stations will be complexes that have restrooms and food places and stuff like that. And so, I think that's probably the way that most of them will go. If they're smart, they will. You look at the established thing, not just Sheetz, but every gas station out there, you never just, have a gas station with nothing else around it. It's always got some kind of convenience store because it's just easy money, and especially places like the Sheetz and the Wawas and stuff. It's hilarious. The ones by us, it's like a running joke every time like Beth and I are driving around where I'm like, literally half the cars that pass by that Sheetz have to turn in. So it's always like if I'm stuck behind a slow car or something, I'm like, please turn into the Sheetz. And like 9 times out of 10 they do, because it's just like people cannot resist the appeal of the convenience store, even though you're paying 3 times what you pay at the grocery store. Just the convenience factor is addictive. So Isaac says, happy birthday too. He says, 32 today. Sorry, I missed that comment too. Happy birthday. Hope you have a great day. And thanks for spending some time here hanging out whenever. I'm sure you have much more fun things to be doing on your birthday. But thanks so much for joining in, saying hi, and hope it's a great one for you and a great year too. So Hugo says, I think gas-powered vehicles will always be on top of EVs for multiple reasons. Price, and I also want to wait 20 minutes to fully charge a vehicle where I can gas up in 3 minutes. Yeah, so I can get into a whole tangent about that, but we'll see battery tech's evolving really fast. The solid state stuff they're promising 5-minute recharge times, and that stuff could be coming as soon as 2026. So as of right now, definitely gas as the convenience factor. That's why for anyone who does a lot of road trips, you're better off getting a gas or a hybrid thing. And then if you're doing, if you're in a situation where you can plug a vehicle in and you want an electrified experience, get a plug-in hybrid. Like I've mentioned many times before, RAV4 Prime, stuff like that's great. I love the Prius Prime. Awesome vehicles, give you that, flexibility of having both the electric experience and the gas. So it just comes down to, different people and how it works out for them. But anyway, sorry, Luke, I missed your super chat there until now. So Thank you so much for the super chat. Luke, he says, I just traded in my 2018 RAV4 in for a 2020 Acura TLX base. It only had 5,000 miles on it. Wow, that's crazy. It was off lease, plenty of features for me being a base. That's awesome. Congrats on the new TLX. They're great cars, so much fun. And I actually was talking to a buddy this week who's considering a TLX as well. And I was like, yeah, I loved it. It was great. As long as you're okay with the infotainment system, I really like the TLX a lot. And so congrats on the switch there, and getting back into a sedan from the SUV, I'm sure is fun too, from a handling standpoint, at least. And the Factor X, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, hey, Matt, hope you're having a good Sunday. Do you think a 2023 Mini Cooper John Cooper Works manual would be a good upgrade from my 2020 Veloster R-Spec? So, it's all going to come down to what you're looking for, what you want out of it. Funny coincidence, though, you mentioned that. My brother-in-law just a couple of months ago traded in he had a 20, I think his was a 2020 as well, Veloster Turbo. It was the ultimate, the loaded up one, but he traded that in for a 2023 Mini Countryman, or is that the Clubman, not the Countryman, Clubman. He's swapped in, which is a little bit bigger, different platform than the Cooper, but similar kind of switch over, and he loves it. He loves the Mini. He's really happy with it. And I gotta say, I never filmed one, and Mini reviews usually do terrible on this channel, so I probably never will. But I gotta tell you what, that is really a slept-on car that is really underappreciated. I actually haven't driven it yet, but he gave me a ride in it, a couple weeks ago. And man, so with the Clubman there, you have basically the same motors like when you get in like a faster version of a BMW, X2 or X1. And it's just that the 2-liter 4-cylinder turbo BMW motor. And there's like 300 horsepower in his John Cooper Works Clubman. And it sounds amazing. I mean, it crackles and pops. It's really loud even on startup. It's really punchy. Handles great. It's a little tight on the inside. And I mean, it's expensive. You're paying, I think, his was like a 50 grand thing, for 300 horsepower and all-wheel drive, which is what he wanted. He loved the hatch thing, and he wanted something a little nicer. He wasn't super into like the Golf R and things like that. So, it's more expensive than a Golf R for probably slightly worse performance, but a really just unique, cool, switch. And I mean, yeah, I think that it's kind of been, all those minis have been snoozed on. I think, the prior generations have given them a bad reputation from a reliability standpoint. And I mean, I had that happen with my R56 as well, where it fell apart, and I got rid of it 6 months in because it was just like a mess. And so, these newer ones, though, I did a video on how the Minis are like a really good underappreciated used car because they are so cheap and they depreciate really fast, which might not be great as far as, purchasing one. If you want to lease one, that might be a better way to go. The John Cooper Works may hold their value a little bit better. I don't know how long you plan to keep it for, but depreciation is one thing you got to watch out for with the Minis. But aside from that, I mean, they're really solid value, and it seems like those newer ones are pretty reliable since it's mostly BMW mechanicals, and they worked out a lot of the electrical stuff that they had issues with the prior generations. So they seem to be pretty solid, really fun cars, and I think that would probably be a good upgrade if you're looking for something very similar to the Veloster, but a little more luxurious, a little more polished, and a little more power. That could be, a great upgrade as well. Again, it comes down to what exactly you're looking for. I'd say if you want something a little higher performing, you also could go up to, a Veloster N if you want to stick with a Veloster, or a Elantra N, have similar types of stuff if you're used to, Hyundai, and that's something you'd be comfortable sticking with. There's a lot of other, fun stuff for probably less money. I don't think the Minis are a great value, but I think as long as that doesn't bother you, there's still a ton of fun, even if it's not the most performance per dollar, still great, fun little vehicles. It's different too, something unique that not everyone has. And so Hugo, I see, also asked, do I miss my Mini? And I do miss my Mini. I was really disappointed that car fell apart so fast. I had plans to, put some winter tires on it and, blast it through the snow and stuff. I never even made it to winter with that. I bought it in like April, and I think I ended up trading it in like October, November. So I missed it, and it's a shame. I wish that it had held together, because I would have driven that car for several years at least, because it was so much fun. But anyway, hopefully that helps you, Factor X, and thank you so much again for the super chat. But getting back to some other member questions here. So Truck and Car Guy says, I'm sure in due time we may see the truck stop chains have some kind of agreement with EV chargers. Yeah, and they do. I think it's is it the Flying J's? I think they announced a partnership with GM last year for some stuff. And there are, I think, one or two others that have announced they are doing that stuff. It's just takes a little bit of time for all this stuff to, actually come online. But I think they are working on putting that in, and that's something that's going to make a lot of sense, especially some of those truck stop ones. I mean, they have showers and stuff, which if you're talking about some of these EVs that charge slower, that could be great. If, you're not, charging up in 15 or 20 minutes, and you're sitting around for half an hour, 45 minutes, it could be great to have all those extra amenities at the truck stops too. Carlos says, going to miss next weekend's live stream, going on a cruise with a bunch of 86s to Skyline Drive in the mountains for 8/6 day. That's awesome. That'll be sweet. Hope you have a blast with that. And no worries about missing the next week's live stream. Next week's live stream, I may still be able to do it. I'm not sure, because I also have a little adventure planned with the family for next weekend as well. So I'm not 100% certain I'll do a live stream next weekend. We will see. I may still be able to squeeze one in. If I do, it will be on Saturday. But yeah, I'm still figuring that out. So no worries there. We might all miss next week, unfortunately. And Hugo says he wouldn't want to wait longer. Yeah, for the Charger. Yeah, I got you, Hugo. Yeah, it's not for everyone for sure. MDKN says, I agree, but I love how playful the Kona N is. I had the ESC in sport mode and it would get a little loose in the back. Made me laugh a few times. I love the playful little vehicles like that. Yeah, that was so much fun. The fact that, I mean, they were lifting the one inside wheel or the outside wheel whenever we were on the autocross course in those. And they do have a playful back end. It's really fun the way they tuned it. And, you can always, stiffen things up if you want to make it even better handling. But yeah, I agree. The playful back end is really unique and really fun in those, and I'm glad you're enjoying it too. Carlos says, is the Mustang Dark Horse R street legal? It'd be cool if it was. No, that is track only for the Dark Horse R, and I think they're actually only they're track only, and I believe, well, maybe they let you drive it wherever you want, but I think they mostly are just focused on doing that for the Mustang mini series, like driving series they do, kind of like how, they have the 86 driving thing that they do as well with the little race series, the cup thing. I think it's kind of that kind of deal with those. So yeah, and I'm sure they'll be insanely expensive and all that, but it's cool nonetheless. I'm still kind of lukewarm on the Mustangs for this new one, but it seems like they're getting some pretty good reviews here so far. And we'll see if I get a chance to do one at some point. Two says, hey, Matt, you said you're going to the Toyota reveal. Are they finally letting you reveal a Previa? I wish they do a Previa someday. That'd be fun. But yeah, excited to go to the Land Cruiser reveal there. And it'd be cool to see what they do with it. It's yeah, it'll be interesting. I now cannot really say anything about it because I now have information that's under embargo, and I legally cannot say anything more on that. But stay tuned for the reveal there on Tuesday, and do as best of a video as I can for you guys, showing you guys all the details there on the new Land Cruiser. It'll be fun. And Luke, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, I love how comfy the TLX is, but handling isn't bad. Yeah, I think the TLXs are really good with the handling. I haven't driven the base one, but I know whenever I had the advanced one that I had, which has the adaptive dampers, I mean, it was really impressive how that thing would go from super soft and comfort mode to, being really nice and sporty there in the sport modes as well. So yeah, great cars for sure. And Carlos, thank you so much for gifting those 5 memberships. I really appreciate it, and glad to see some of you are able to snap those up there. And all right, so getting back to the other questions here. Raphael says, sorry I'm late. I was picking the first tomatoes from the garden and already my first 17-ounce tomato. Well, congrats. That's awesome. Yeah, my my daughter loves watering both my mom and Beth's mom also have little gardens. And so our daughter loves going around watering all the plants and, picking stuff if there's anything there to pick. But congrats on the first tomatoes there. That's awesome. Triton Cargo says, I guess I'll find out once I hit the road next week. Oh, yeah. Safe travels out there. And yeah, I'm not sure when they said all those convenience store or all the charges would come into the trucking stops, but I think truck stop stuff. I thought they said it's either coming this year or next year. Seems like everyone's really saying 2024, so it might not be till next year. But let me see here. Other questions. Ashish says, drinking water. I'm disappointed. Yeah, previously it's been the tea, but I got a little bit of a thing in my throat here, so I'm just having some water today to try and keep it as clear and healthy as possible. All right, and Gladys says, what can I get to replace my Honda Accord V6? My budget is around 30 grand. I like a used sedan. Well, if you like your Accord and you want to stick with an Accord, I'd go for a newer Accord. So V6, I guess that would be at least 2 generations ago now. So if you want to go up to like the last generation Accords, I think they're great. The 2.0 T motor and the touring models, or any of them for that matter, is really great. The transmission's pretty good in those. Handling is just, I think, the best in the segment for sedans, especially, family sedans like that. Accords are great. So if you're happy with your Accord and you like Hondas and your service department and all that, I'd go to, last generation's Accord, get one of those really solid buys. I think I love them a lot. So that'd be the recommendation. If you want to stick with a V6, your options are pretty limited, even on the lightly used market. I mean, you're looking at what, Camry, and is that basically it now that has a V6? I'm trying to remember any other lightly used stuff with V6s out there. But I mean, Camry is really the last one to do it, and that probably won't last long either. So, yeah, I'd say probably stick to another Accord if that's something that sounds interesting to you. Said I want something that can be fun when pushed. It doesn't have to be something crazy. I live where it snows. Yeah, so I'd say that Accord would be probably pretty good. The only thing I'll say about the Accord is that the 2.0 Ts, I mean, they're torquey. And so I would be nervous about that in the snow potentially, since they don't have limited slip diffs. So if you want something that's good in the snow, I could say you can go for a WRX or something like that if you want a manual. Or if you don't see, I wish I could recommend the Legacy, but the handling just isn't that great in the Legacy anymore. So I don't know how much you care about all-wheel drive, but aside from that, you can go Camry all-wheel drive, something like that. But yeah, I mean, I'd probably just say Accord would still be your best bet, depending on how much snow you get. I mean, there's other stuff too. It depends on, what exactly, like if you want something with a V6, you can also, if you're, I don't know, well, you can probably under 30 grand get a Genesis G70 with a 2.5 or the 2.0 T motor. That could be really fun. You can get that with all-wheel drive, great handling, still pretty comfortable, a little smaller than the Accord. But if you don't need the most space, I love the Genesis G70. It'd be a great buy. Infiniti G37, something like that, or the Q50 could be a really solid buy too. You can get that with a V6 and all-wheel drive. That could be another good one. But yeah, it's really mostly just like the luxury brands that kind of have that kind of stuff these days. TLX is another one. Like Luke just picked up one of those. They're also great. So you can get one of those, I believe, under 30 now for a base one potentially, and get it with all-wheel drive too. And that's got a strong, 2.0 T motor that has the all-wheel drive. So same kind of stuff as the Accord, but fixes the traction problem if, again, you need to have good traction there. So that could be another choice as well. So yeah, those are probably the top ones I can think of. Hopefully that helps you a little bit, Gladdy. Hugo says, I've always wanted an Accord coupe manual with V6. Yeah, they're great. And I'm hoping to review another one here. I have one on the wait list that I'm hoping to get to someday as well. But the one that I did several years ago was really good too. Luke says his TLX is 27.5. Well, there you go. So yeah, that's great. Thanks for sharing that, Luke. Really a solid purchase, I think, at those price points. Let me see. So Dom says, hey, Matt, late to the chat. Hope all is well. Thanks for joining in, Dom. I hope everything's well with you too. And Jay says, morning, Matt. Hope all has been well for you and your family. Just hopped on. Thanks for joining us as well, Jay. Luke says, I think my RAV4 was not a bad vehicle, but I don't think an SUV was all it's cracked up to be. Interesting. Yeah, I wonder how many people have that same switch where they, feel the appeal of the SUV, they go up to it, and then they go back. I don't know. It's interesting. And two says embargo costs Toyota Shell or Toyota Shill, I'm guessing you're saying. Yeah, no, I do embargoes with a lot of different companies. It's just standard procedure if you're high enough up that you get, the advance notice on some of this stuff, so that you can do a better video and have the research done ahead of time, so that, whenever you see everything posted up right at the reveal, it's because we all had it ahead of time. We don't do videos at lightning speed, so we get a head start there, thankfully, on a lot of that stuff. Triton Car Guy says Charger has a 3.6 liter V6 and all-wheel drive. You can probably get a used one between 25 and 30. Yeah, Charger's another good suggestion if you're okay going to the domestic stuff. Charger's super comfortable. I just wouldn't say Charger's very sporty with the handling, because you mentioned you want something a little fun there when it's pushed. Charger kind of falls apart, especially those base Chargers. I think I probably reviewed it maybe 8 years ago at this point or something, but I did have a regular V6 all-wheel drive Charger for a week. And I mean, it's a nice cruiser, but it just felt really loose, very old school. So if you're someone who misses the Tauruses and stuff like that, it could be a great choice, but it's just not as sporty as all the other stuff, in my opinion, at least. And Raphael says, the smooth V6 is the reason it's so hard to trade in my Camry. Everything has a turbo 4 now. Yeah, it's just different preferences, as far as what people like. I mean, the V6 is definitely smooth. It's just, every time I'm in a V6 Camry, it's like you got to really rev it out a lot more than everything else. With all these turbos these days have an instant power, from zero essentially. It's a very different experience. It's unique to the Camry. It'll be interesting to see if they keep it around. I would not hold my breath. Everything Toyota's doing, it seems like they're swapping the V6 for the turbo, 2.4. So, my guess is that's what the Camry is going to get, at some point, but we'll see. Maybe they'll stick around with the V6 for a little bit and then switch over later. Who knows? But yeah, it's interesting stuff. And let me see. So Frosty Johnson says, Matt, I purchased a 2021 Toyota Corolla hybrid yesterday. I never owned one, but I'm really enjoying it. And it only has 6,000 miles, 57 mpg. Well, congrats on the new car. That's awesome. And 57, that's impressive. That's even better than what I was getting in the Prius, although the Prius is a little faster, but still 57 is solid. That's going to be great. Especially if you're someone who's looking forward to saving money on gas. I mean, that is, going to be awesome. And the hybrids are great because you had that little bit of an extra shove from the electric motors early on there, and glad you're enjoying it. So congrats on the new car. It's always fun. Javier says, good morning. I have a 2021 Sonata N-Line, but I'm debating whether or not to get something or to get the upcoming refreshed Elantra N. Yeah, I got to look into the new Elantra N because someone commented in the weekly update that apparently there's more info on it, that it's ditching the 1.6 and going up to the 2.5, I think. For some reason that didn't come across all the news sites that I follow, so I wasn't able to follow that. So I'll have to look into that some more and see. Maybe you know more than I do, Javier, about that. But as far as whether you switch to that, it's going to come down to, if you're okay with the smaller space, a little bit of a cheaper interior in the Elantra versus the Sonata. And you definitely have the LSD, which is nice in the Elantra. So if you're not super in love with just doing burnouts everywhere in the Sonata, at least, with the Elantra, if it has that new motor, it might still have that problem, but it'll put the power down a little bit better with the diff that it'll have, so it's just gonna be a more composed vehicle and a little stiffer than the Sonata. I mean, have the adaptive dampers in the Elantra, which will certainly help, but it's just different flavors of a similar type of thing. I think Sonatas are great though if you want that comfort for the daily drive. It's certainly gonna be a little bit nicer to daily drive than the Elantra, but Elantras are fantastic. I love the Elantra N, and yeah, that'd be a top pick for me too. If I wanted, the most fun per dollar and I needed 4 doors, I still think Elantra N is pretty tough to beat. And Jay says, not able to get my membership yet because of a fraud charge on my debit card. We'll be back on membership once I get my new card. Well, sorry to hear about the fraud. That definitely sucks. And yeah, no worries. And looking forward to having you back as a member, but it's all good. Yeah, I'll try and keep an eye out for your comments here as well in the chat here. But Carla says, if you want a fun sedan, you can get a Mazda 6. Doesn't have a V6, but it'll be a fun daily. Yeah, Mazda 6 is another great choice. That's the one that I often forget about because it's been gone for a couple of years now. But getting back to the previous question there about that. Yeah, that's another great one to suggest. Thanks, Carlos, for suggesting that. Mazda 6s are great. They do handle really nicely. I still think the Accord handles better, in my opinion, from it's just quicker steering, feels a little lighter in the Accord and all that. But Mazda 6s are really great. And I think they're the most luxurious ones of the bunch whenever they were around because it was just so much more insulated. It's a little softer, a little more polished. Yeah, that 2.5T motor, I mean, it's punchy. It's so punchy. So that'd be a great purchase as well. And thanks for suggesting that, Carlos. She says, really conflicted about the Civic Si. Need to upgrade to a 4-door from my manual 2022 BRZ. Don't feel like they're great. Same price manual options compared to my BRZ. Thoughts? I would say the Si is a pretty good, comparable if you have to switch into something that's front wheel drive and, 4 doors. So if you're looking for something around that price, so I will pull up, I have a list of if I ever needed to go to a 4-door car, I don't know why I even have this list, but I have a list of all of my favorite stuff at whatever price point it's at. So if you're talking 30 grand-ish for BRZ, I mean, SI still it's on my list as one of my favorite picks around that price point. It's going to come down to what you're looking for. As far as if you want a manual, then that's going to really limit your stuff. And yeah, same price. So I mean, I don't know, it's a stretch, but Veloster N has 3 doors. You have a back seat that's actually fairly usable and a pretty nice size hatch too. Veloster N could be a great choice if you can find one of those. Aside from that, with a manual, if you can hunt down a Genesis G70 with a manual, you could probably get one of those around the same price point. They're rare, so you're gonna have to probably travel, and there's probably gonna be like maybe 5 in the country to pick from. But that's Genesis G70s are fantastic. I've never driven the manual. I've heard that it's not exceptional, but that it's a manual, and that's some So if you just want a manual, even if it's not the best manual experience, G70 could be an option as well. Otherwise, if you want the best manual experience, Civic Si. It's really hard to beat a Honda Shifter, in my opinion. So I think that would be it. And then, yeah, anything else, like I would say a GR Corolla, but that's going to be 40 grand at least. If you can hunt one down, close to MSRP. So you're talking 10 grand over the BRZ at that point. So yeah, as far as my list of favorites, it would either be an SI or a Veloster N, if you can, justify that, or the G70. Those would be my 3 if you need a manual and 4 doors. So hopefully that helps you a little bit. Yeah, if you have any openness to an automatic, then there's a bunch of other fun stuff, like the TLX is also one of my favorites, and a few others. But yeah, there's a few there, but hopefully that helps you out a little bit, if you're looking for something. But I mean, SIs are great. I really think they're fantastic. And if you're underwhelmed by the power or something, that you can also improve it. You can do a tune, do things like that. If you want something a little more polished, you can go up to an Integra if you want, and you're okay spending 36 grand. That's another great choice too. So there's a few there, but yeah, it'd be nice to have more options. But just the way the world is right now in the car market. And WT Drake says, Matt, do you think giant screen dashes like in the new Mustang are trendy or here to stay? That's a good question. I think it's something that is, I don't know if it's a trend. I think that we're still figuring out how best to go about having that kind of an integration, because I think people want the screens, they want the technology, but it seems like a lot of people are infuriated by the application and the way that they've executed those screens so far, with either just being lazy in their design or being too low. Because it's really, all these manufacturers are pretty much caught in between one compromise or the other. It's either you have a tacked on screen that's sitting on top of the dashboard, so you have good visibility and it's not like you're peering down into a well every time you're going to your infotainment system. But then if you have it low, then it's distracting and you're looking down away from the road, but then it's more integrated into the car. So it's really tough. I would not want to be an interior designer for cars right now, because it's just really tough. But as far as the Mustang, I think that one, they definitely hopped on the trend. They had a great design with the current interior, and they could have even made the screen a good bit bigger. If you look at the current generation, or I guess now prior S550 generation Mustangs, there's cutout there. You could make that bigger, especially if they got rid of the HVAC controls. They could have put a bigger screen, and there's some aftermarket companies that have retrofitted larger screens into the S550s. And you basically just, everything from the air vents down, you just hack out that whole rectangular space there and shove a screen in there. And yes, it wouldn't have probably been quite as big as the one that's in the 2024 Mustang, but you could have had a huge screen and still retained the retro double hooded dash thing and all that. And they just chose to just, put 2 huge iPads up there instead. I haven't driven it, so I can't say if it hurts visibility. I would assume that it would, especially if you're not super tall, but I don't know. But as far as, whether, I think that was just, they had to hop on the trend. And I think there's an article that was interviewing Ford's executives saying how they wanted to make sure this new Mustang appealed to the younger generation, because that's one thing that I guess they feel like they weren't doing as well with the last one, even though I think they did. But anyway, they're trying to appeal to that younger generation. So that means screens everywhere, have everything be run by video game graphic engines, and have all this video game kind of stuff in it. And we'll see how that plays out for them. But I think they definitely were just following the trend. The others may actually think that it helps or whatever, but I think with the Mustang, they're just following the trend for sure. Kyle, thank you so much for also gifting 5 memberships there. And great to see that you guys had your members gifting turned on there, so you're able to snatch those up. And thanks so much, Kyle, for your generosity. And all right, so I'm going to hop back down to some member questions here so we don't get too far behind on those, and then I'll come back to the other questions in a minute. But Sean says, hey, Matt, why weren't you on the Mustang launch? Speaking of the Mustang. So I would love to know why I wasn't on the Mustang launch. I did not get an invite from Ford. So, and I've talked about this a few times before, so I don't want to get too much into this, and no one likes to hear me complain, I'm sure. But I have no clue why I didn't get an invite to that. I've been invited to one Ford event ever, and it was for the GT 500, which I loved. I had a good time. I was nice to everyone on the event. I didn't do anything bad to the car. I said really nice things about the car, even though that shouldn't be a requirement, but I just genuinely loved the car and didn't really have much negative to say about it. So I mean, even though I'm always honest, I don't think I even really had any complaints with that car because I just loved everything about it. So there's, from my standpoint, no reason why I wouldn't have gotten invites from Ford after that. But for some reason, it could just be that my view count isn't high enough. But it's kind of the car reviewing world is weird. I mean, I guess it's kind of mostly like everything else in the world where it comes down to who you know. So there's a good component of that where it's, there's a lot of people that go to these events that have way less viewership than I do, that work for little tiny websites, or, tiny little magazines or tiny little newspaper columns and things like that. Or there's some people that don't even do any coverage and they're just showing up to these things because they're, in the inner circle and get invited to everything no matter what. So there's a bunch of complicated reasons why certain people are there and certain people aren't. It could be that I just don't have the views, and if that's the case, then fine, so be it. But a lot of times these aren't based on merit with the invites, and so I don't know if it was just one thing or the other, but for whatever reason, I did not get invited on any of the Ford stuff, and I haven't. And they're super slow sending me press cars as well, so it's really tough working with Ford. And I mean, they make great products, and that's why I'm objective. And even though they upset me with excluding me from stuff, and they aren't very easy to work with, they make great products. That's why I have a Bullet. That's why we bought Beth's Mach-E, because it just was the best fit for us, and it's a really good vehicle. And so I'd love to like sell it out of spite or something because Ford annoys me, but they have really good stuff, and it is what it is. So I'm objective with my car purchases as well. But yeah, so I don't know why I didn't get an invite, but it's a shame because I know a lot of people were asking in the comments on my other videos this week, I want to hear your thoughts on it, Matt. Like, when are you going to do a video? And I'm like, I don't know. I wish I could help you out there. Again, I'm sure Ford doesn't give a crap if I give my opinion on it. They'd probably rather I didn't, because I'll probably say that it's a lot of carryover, and that it's not all new like they claim. And maybe they, saw that coming and knew that I wouldn't pull punches. And so they're trying to dodge the criticism. I don't know. I have no clue. I could speculate all day, but for some reason I did not get an invite. I wish I had an answer for you, Sean. And we'll see what happens. I'd love to be surprised and have them send me a press car quickly, because I really want to do a review on the EcoBoost and the GT and the Dark Horse, but might be waiting until like next year for a Mustang review, because typically Ford is super slow with sending me stuff to the point where it's like I get stuff a year after everyone else drove it. So yeah, and you'll even see some of the other videos I've posted. Like, I got a Mach-E when I first did my first Mach-E review. They'd been out for almost a year. And there's been a couple of times. I think the Raptor, when I reviewed the Raptor, it was a 2021 that I was reviewing in 2022. That's how slow they were with sending me stuff. It was like embarrassing for them. Like, you're sending me 2021s in 2022. So it's whatever. That's what they choose to do. But yeah, you can't tell I'm a little bitter, but it's all good. Luke, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, I had trouble getting the Android Auto in my TLX to work. I needed a 2.5 amp USB cable, or my screen says unsupported. Have you experienced this? Interesting. I don't know. I think I only have experience with Apple stuff, so it's hard for me to say, but I know with Apple, you have to have like their certified cables supposedly for some of that stuff to work totally reliably. So maybe there's something like that where, your phone just needs that kind of a cable. I think I've heard about some other cars doing that though, where if it's not a high enough amperage or the right amperage, that it won't work. So I've heard of that before. I can't remember what other vehicles people complained about that in, but that's not the first time I've heard about the cable being, needing to be a certain kind for it to work. But I'm glad you figured it out, and hopefully it'll work without issue going forward for you there. But Thank you so much once again for the super chat. And hopefully you don't have any other issues with the TLX there and it treats you well. And Jay, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, trading in the Mach-E for the Grand Highlander would be nice to see once your family gets bigger. Yeah, I think, we'll probably stick with the Mach-E and we'll see what happens after that. Grand Highlander is great, but Beth doesn't really love the huge 3-row stuff. And honestly, like a Grand Highlander, I don't even know if that would fit in our garage. We have a pretty small garage and we would want to have whatever we get fit in the garage. And also, I don't think our family's getting any bigger. I think we are potentially one and done. So I think we probably will just only need a 2-row vehicle and won't have to ever thankfully go up to some massive 3-row vehicle or a minivan or anything like that. So but yeah, Grand Highlander is great. If you need the space, they are fantastic. Still probably my favorite one of the bunch there. All right, other questions here. Raphael says, I always sound like I'm complaining about screens. I don't mind large screens. I don't like that they phone it in and stick them on instead of setting the effort of integrating them. Yeah, it's like I said, it's really tough. Because if you had a good integration that was also high enough up so that it's not like looking down, then you'd have this enormously high dash. You'd have some huge like mountain in the middle of your dashboard there, so the screen is like integrated just so it didn't look like a tablet. But I think Mini did a really good job with the new Cooper. If you saw that in my weekly update, where it's really thin with the bezels and it's a pretty large screen, but it's not sticking up super high. And with the Mini, they can kind of get away with it tacked on thing because they've always had a center display there. Even before it was a display, it was the huge speedometers and stuff. So I think that one is they're kind of lucky with their heritage and just the way they do design that it kind of worked out for them. But yeah, it's tough to do the screens these days, to make everyone happy. It's a tough thing. And let me see other questions here. So Kyle says, have a good weekend, everyone. And of course the gifting there. So thank you so much once again, Kyle. And two says, hey, Matt, Toyota missed the opportunity to make a Camry Prime. Also, what would you call the hybrid GR Corolla? Corolla Prime? Yeah, potentially. I mean, we'll see what they do with all that stuff. I think that Camry, especially now we have it on Prius too, I think Camry is probably the top candidate in my mind to get the Prime treatment next. We'll see if this new generation does add in a Prime version. I think it makes a lot of sense though. And yeah, I'm curious to see what they do as far as GR Corolla if it goes hybrid someday. I feel like that calling it just the Prime wouldn't do service to it. I feel like they'd have to call it like Prime Plus, or I don't know what else they could call it without getting sued by Amazon. But I'm sure they could come up with some other Prime combo and do something to make it a little bit, more of a distinct thing. But we'll see if they do that. That'd be cool too, to see a hybrid GR Corolla. Hugo says, and that's why Ford is sinking. Yeah, I think Ford's doing great. They seem to be doing really well sales wise and all that. And two says, Ford didn't invite you because you're a Toyota show. Yeah, still sticking on to that joke too. Yeah. Carlos says, Matt, I went to the Ferrari of Washington's monthly car meet yesterday, and a Carrera GT showed up. First time seeing one in person. It was beautiful. They're awesome. Yeah, they're great to see in person. They're beautiful vehicles. They sound amazing. I actually, way back when I used to go to Cars and Coffee like every week whenever I was a lot younger, I actually did a rev battle. It was one of my most popular videos way back then. It was probably 2012 or 2013 of Carrera GT, LFA, Murcielago, and I think there was one other, maybe a Gallardo or something that all did. Oh, I think it was an R8 V10 maybe, that all did a rev battle lined up, and it was just like one after another. It was glorious symphony. But yes, Carrera GTs are amazing. My view of them is slightly tainted though, since it wasn't the car's fault, but Paul Walker died in one. And so to me, every time I see a Carrera GT, it just gives me a sad thought. And so for me, not to be a downer here, but yeah, I kind of quit loving the Carrera GT ever since 2013. They're great cars, and it's very unfair of me to not like them, but I can't separate those two thoughts. And so for me, it's probably my least favorite supercar now, even though again, they are amazing. And I almost got to drive one once, actually, way back when I used to work at a Porsche dealer. And they're tricky to drive from what I've heard. They have a very heavy, tricky clutch. And are a handful. But yeah, great cars still nonetheless. Jazz, thank you so much for joining in. He says, if Ford is worried your review wouldn't be favorable, maybe they were trying to dodge the bullet. Good puns. Yeah, and it's again, I don't want to rant, but I feel like Ford is definitely one of the like Kool-Aid companies where everyone in the company thinks they've done the greatest thing ever and like they've never made a mistake, and it's like rah rah Ford. So I mean, it could be that they just don't like, anytime I give it to them straight, but that's what I got to do. I'm always honest. I mean, there's a lot of other journalists though that were on those programs that are also very honest, that don't pull punches, that I would 100% trust and respect their opinions. So maybe I don't, like I said, I have no clue why they didn't invite me. It could just be that I just don't get the views that they're looking for. I don't know. And let me see. So, Al's joined in. Thanks for joining in. He says, if you could own a used non-American sports car for weekend track use, what would you go for? GR86. That would be my pick. I'd get a used one of those. Yeah, I think that'd be my top pick. Miata would be great too for a little weekend track thing. That'd probably be my second choice, would be an ND2 Miata 2019 or newer with a manual. Fantastic driving experience. Those would be definitely my top two. There's no need to spend any more money than that, in my opinion. They are so much fun, plenty of fun on the streets, amazing little fun cars for the track and the street. I think it's two of the best values out there for an enthusiast right now. And Brianna says, there you are. I prefer the Cayenne and the Panamera. Thanks for joining in, Brianna. And I'm going to try and catch up to some of the other questions here that I might have missed a little bit earlier on here. Okay, so Simple and Yummy says, is it worth getting a cheap Kia Rio for a really good warranty that they offer? I have no experience with the Rio, so I can't say. He says, my Volkswagen Jetta warranty is ending soon. I haven't driven the Rio, so I can't weigh in on it. I mean, it seems like I hear some horror stories about those really cheap, like little Kias. They don't seem to be put together as well as the bigger stuff is. Yeah, I mean, you do get the warranty there. Hyundai Accent could be another one to give you that warranty. But I would really say that a warranty is really helpful and it's definitely a great thing to have. But you also have to look at the reputation of the vehicle. So I would try and see if you can kind of dig around online, either if there's Kia Rio forums or Facebook groups or something, to see if it's solid. But like personally, if it were me, I would probably rather go for like, I guess the comparable stuff that's used would be like a Honda Fit or, like a Toyota Yaris, if you're going back to those older, smaller little things. If you're looking for something brand new, I don't know what your budget is, but even if you could go up to like a base Corolla, I mean, it'll run forever and hopefully won't ever need the warranty anyway. I'd rather have less warranty and know that I'm never going to need it most likely than have a long warranty and be like, well, at least I got the warranty, So to me, I still think it's really tough to do better than a Corolla if you're looking for something in that segment that's super reliable. Civic could be a solid choice, especially if you go for the naturally aspirated base motor and not the turbo one. So even though the turbo ones seem to be okay, but if you want to have as little to go wrong as possible, the naturally aspirated one's a better way to go. So I still think, again, I don't know, if you can jump up to that higher price point, but used, or even if it's, lightly used or something, Corolla or Civic, I think would be my pick over a Rio. Or even, like I said, go back to a Yaris, go back to, something like that if you need to. Mazda is a great choice too. If you can go for like a used little Mazda 3, those seem to be super solid. Even if you go back to the old ones, like you can go back as old as you want for a Mazda 3. It seems like they're all pretty solid. And they even had, the little Mazda based Yaris for those last couple of years for Toyota that were great. And I actually reviewed one of those a few years back, if you're curious, but that could be another little fun thing that, again, you won't need the warranty on most likely. And it's also important to note that like with the Rio and stuff like that, you have the 10-year powertrain warranty, but they're all still the same 3-year bumper to bumper. So as far as screens going bad, all that kind of stuff, you're going to be in the same situation regardless of which brand you go with. So it's really only going to be the motor. And again, if you're getting a Toyota or Mazda or a Honda or something like that, you don't have to worry about the motor most likely. So, I would just weigh that. Whenever you're talking about some of the other stuff in the higher segments, like the Genesis has an edge because of the 10-year warranty, because it's something the others don't offer. And we know that BMWs and Audis and Mercedes like to have some glitches down the road. And, you don't have to worry about that with the Genesis as much. There's some of those types of things. But when you're talking about the cheapest segments, I really think you're better off just sticking with those. So sorry for the long-winded answer, but that's my thoughts on that. He said, yeah, I didn't know the Fit was still around. Fit is not around. Fit is old. I didn't know if you're shopping new or used there, but I'd say, I'd rather, even if it's a new Rio versus a used Fit or something that's 5 years old, I'd still probably rather have that. Just because, again, you have something solid, something that's, really reliable. But yeah, Rio has the hatch. Gotcha. Yeah. So that's a great choice still. I mean, and there's also other stuff. You want something like there's the Hyundai Venue. I know it's kind of an SUV and not a hatch per se, but it's kind of a lifted hatch that has that little naturally aspirated motor and could be good too. But I believe if you're looking for hatch, the last gen Yaris, which again was just a rebadged Mazda, they had a hatch version for at least a couple of years. That could be a choice. It's small, but if you're okay, I mean, Rio is small too. So I'm guessing with those, you'd be, maybe served to have the same kind of thing there. I don't know. Just a few thoughts there for you. Hopefully that's a little bit helpful and doesn't complicate things more for you. Brianna says Jettas don't need a warranty. I would disagree with that. My sister leased a Jetta. It was a brand new Jetta she leased. It was the last generation, 3-year lease. The USB jacks never worked right. And he was giving her some wonky stuff. She had to take it into the dealer a couple of times. Jettas, at least the newer ones, are not a vehicle I'd want to own out of warranty. Volkswagens, unfortunately, are problematic, especially with electrical gremlins as they get older. Everyone jokes on the Mark 7 GTI forums about how they always have at least one light on the dash for some reason. Like it's a running joke now. Volkswagens are like unreliable, in my opinion, at least. It seems like that's the consensus. So I would certainly, if you're going to have Volkswagen, get it with a warranty for sure. But everyone has different experiences. So maybe you've had some good experiences, Brianna, with the Volkswagens there. So let me see here. Some other questions. See. DXB driver says, hi, how are you? Hope you're doing okay. How is the new SC63? What do you think about the new twin turbo V8? Are you talking about the maybe C63? I'm not sure if an SC63 is, but as far as I think you're talking about the Mercedes, I've not driven the new gen stuff. The previous gen was amazing with its twin turbo V8. And it was a ton of fun. Tom, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, hey, Matt, do you think the new Mustang will oversaturate the market, preventing markups? Also wonder when they will be at dealers. I believe they said they're going to be showing up this summer, so they should come pretty soon. My guess would be, sometime here in the next month if they actually want to stick to that summer date. So as far as whether they'll oversaturate the market, you look at the current Mustang production, they're still in the same factory, same kind of components. There shouldn't be any kind of differences as far as production as compared to what they're been able to do with the past generation. So I don't know. I think the only thing that will make demand tighter is the fact that there's no other options anymore. So you won't see this as an issue this year because the Camaro is still on lots this year and the Challenger is still on lots this year. But next year and going forward, we will see. Maybe Ford will try and boost production of the Mustang, and they are going to anticipate that. But whenever it's the only game in town, you may see the lots a little less full of Mustangs just because everyone's actually buying them. They're not sitting around as much. So I don't know. We will see. I think that's not that segment doesn't have huge demand anymore. So it's pretty easy to keep up with demand for that, especially a company as large as Ford that has, common parts there with the V8, being from the F-150 and all those other things. It's a little easier to ramp up production on those versus some of the other, sporty stuff that is a little more production limited. So I'm sure they could probably rise to meet demand. We'll see. I don't know though. I know especially Ford dealers are some of the worst with markups. And so if they've learned from the past few years that we can not order cars and have it all be scarce and custom ordered, then, you can charge more for them. So they may actually, even though Ford might be able to build them, maybe the dealers will be like, nope, we only want to have 2 Mustangs on our lot and treat them like Ferraris. And that might be the way that they do play it as well. So it's going to come down to the dealers too. But at least, we will see. I don't know if Ford's 100% back to normal from all the parts shortages, but if they are, I know for reference with my Bullet, I placed the order, I believe it was in April is when ordering opened, and it showed up. Now I had a little bit of help with Ford because they did actually give me priority ordering there, but ordered it in April and it showed up by middle of July. So only 3.5 months there or so roughly. So, it's not going to be long if you show up at a Mustang lot and, there's not any Mustangs there or the dealers are being annoying. Go to a dealer that's not going to be annoying, place an order, and hopefully within, 3 or 4 months, you'll have your car, and it's not buying it off the lot that day, but, it's not that long of a wait compared to like our Mach-E that took us 9 months to get, so hopefully that's something people will be able to work around. And Mike says, based on how good the Ioniq 6 seems to be with EVs, do luxury brand vehicles become less desirable in terms of NVH? Maybe not ride comfort, but NVH has also been reduced with mainstream gas brands. Yeah, I think, and I think this is an argument that's made for a long time about, do you actually get, more car for that luxury branding and badging? And sometimes you do, but I think with a lot of the mainstream stuff, they've made a lot of these things that were exclusive to luxury cars in the past. Now they've brought all that stuff down. You can get ventilated seats in a Kia K5. You can get adaptive cruise control as standard in a Corolla. You have all these things that used to be these prestigious features you don't have, or that are now just in everything. So I think that from a feature standpoint, yeah, the luxury brands have lost some appeal there. And then as far as like NVH, like you're mentioning, I think the EVs certainly do make that, a little bit of a more level playing field because, yeah, you have the great refinement and you have, just a similar driving experience. And yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely a debatable thing as far as whether a lot of these luxury vehicles are worth it. Some of them still are because they're so plush, and that's something you can't get with a lot of mainstream stuff these days. But, like I was even just in the Accord, a few months back, and that Accord is so soft that I'm even like, yes, you have better driving dynamics and you have more power, but like for someone who doesn't care about power and driving dynamics, like the average company lease person that's getting a 5 Series or a 3 Series, like they'd honestly be better off getting an Accord. It's softer, it's more cushy, it's closer to the rolling sofa that a lot of people probably want, and it still handles decently well as well. It's not like it's a sloppy mess, but it's just like the new Accord is like super comfortable, and you have all those luxury features, and it's like, is a 5 Series worth double the money? Probably not, in my opinion. Not even close, And so I think that's, there's a lot of that's debatable with any luxury brand in general. And I think, yeah, the EVs, it's a good point. That certainly kind of brings that debate even closer. And also the fact they're so expensive for the EVs means you're basically buying a luxury vehicle anyway with a lot of this stuff. Like the Mach-E, like ours was 50 grand, and it's like 50 grand can buy you a GLC or, some kind of X3 or something like that. So they are luxury priced as well. So it's, they kind of are their own luxury thing, just for the fact that they're EVs too. And Rafi says, morning, Matt. I hope the morning has been well. Loved your GR Corolla review. Thanks. Thanks for joining in. I'm glad you watched the GR Corolla video and liked it. Yeah, that one I was really passionate about. As you guys can see, it was just, I mean, if you already watched the video, I'm not going to summarize the video again, but I mean, it really, it reminded me of the old Subaru stuff, and it really reignited that Subaru WRX fan in me that I feel like almost was kind of lost a little bit in a way, where just my love of that boosty, like exploding turbo kind of feeling, and the raw, small little, scrappy thing that doesn't have a luxurious interior. It really just, it made me feel young again. Not like I'm old, I'm 33, but it made me want to, be that 20-something-year-old again that's, running around at midnight and chasing his buddies down, at Sheets and stuff. All is just, it kind of brought out the juvenile in me, I guess is the best way to put it. And it was just, it was so much fun. It was, and I had a lot of fun opportunities in that vehicle too. This past week, I went to go see Oppenheimer at 11 o'clock at night. So I was driving home at like 1:30 in the morning on a deserted highway. And I always respectful of the speed limits, but I can just say that I was able to have a little bit of fun having a deserted highways and no one around late at night, ripping around that GR Corolla. Good times. That I have a lot of fun memories that I'll hold on to for a long time in that car. Yeah, I honestly, when I was on the first drive, I did, the track driving, and it was really impressive on track. And I, was on the little ring road. I'm like, this is really good, but I was annoyed by the grinding, which this one thankfully didn't do with the new one. But, I don't know why it didn't make as much of an impact on me on that first drive. I mean, I enjoyed it and I loved it if you watch the original review, but the fact that it like floored me even more after spending more time with it is usually it's usually the other way around. Usually the more time I spend on the vehicle, the more I'm like, okay, this is really good, but here's where all the flaws come out. But instead with the GR Corolla, it was like I'm finding more and more to love about it, and I'm falling more in love with it as time goes on. And it's yeah, it was just sorry, I could gush about that car all day. It's gonna be one of my new favorites to gush about for hours on end for anyone who's unlucky enough to get me started on that topic. But yeah, they're fantastic. Thanks for joining in, Rumpy. Jazz says, without satellite radio, doubt I would get an Accord. Maybe a 24 Sonata would be my choice. Sonata's a great too. And yeah, that is a good point about the Accord not having the satellite radio, which is so strange. I don't know why they did that. Bizarre choice. But anyway, yeah, good point. And yeah, Sonata is a great choice as well, as is the K5. Just the Sonata, it's comfy, but it's not Accord comfy. If you're looking for the best ride quality in the segment right now, Accord's got it on lock, in my opinion. Rafi says the whole used market thing was also a good point about the GR Corolla. More personality from a car makes me excited once you get a Type R to test. Yeah, and I will be testing one very, very soon. So I'll be doing an updated member schedule. If not this week, I will do one next week, and I will let you guys know exactly when the Type R video is coming. I do have a little bit of a backlog because there's some reviews that I put on the back burner, as you might know if you've been following along with those posts on the member page. But I got to get through some of the stuff that's been backlogged for a while and post those up, and then I'll be posting some Type R stuff here soon. But yeah, I'm curious to see, because that was, again, I had a lot of fun in that for that one day, but I'll be curious. I would likely bet the GR Corolla is still going to be more fun to me, and I will definitely like the Integra most likely over the Type R, but we'll see. Maybe Type R will surprise me. Like I said, GR Corolla kind of surprised me, so we'll see. It's why I love keeping an open mind about this stuff and just seeing what happens, and just putting it out there, as I'm experiencing it real time with my very unpolished reviews of just like, here's how I feel about it, and it's how I like to do things. But anyway, Carlos says, did you find it easy to speed in the GR Corolla? I constantly find myself going way faster than I should in the 86. Car is too much fun. Yes, it was very easy to go faster than I was intending to in the GR Corolla for sure. Although you do have to work for it a little bit in the Corolla. It's very short gearing, so you're really ringing through the gears a lot and stuff. But yeah, it was one of those. I don't think it was like too easy to go fast. It's just that it was too tempting to go fast because I just kept wanting to get another hit of that adrenaline, of that boost kicking on. And it just was so addicting that it's just like bringing out the bad behavior in me, even though I had to work for it and it wasn't necessarily easy to drive fast. It was just that it wanted to go fast and I wanted to go fast at every possible opportunity. So let me see here. The Flip Biscuit says, I would just wish Subaru would have resurrected the real STI branding. I know. I would love to someday sit down with one of those Subaru executives and just be like, off the record, please tell me what happened to the STI. Because I've talked about this a couple of times, so I apologize if I'm repeating myself. But back whenever they canceled that car, I was so thrown off because when we were on the WRX launch event, the head of Subaru PR for North America, or for the United States, one or the other, was, someone asked, so what about the STI? Because this was before, obviously, it was canceled. When's the STI coming? And the PR guy said, we're not going to talk about Big Brother today. So Big Brother existed, and they're, in his mind, like, he had a grin on his face, so it wasn't like a sad, like, we'll talk about it some other time. It was like he had a grin on his face and was like, we're not talking about it today. So even as far as Subaru North American leadership, at least as of the fall of 2021, STI was a thing. And so to me, that tells me that not only was it already in the works, but that it was most likely close to being done. If they were already, in the loop about it, and typically in the past, they'd come out about a year or so after the regular WRX. So, and I believe it was even on a leaked timeline way back when. I remember covering a couple of years back on the weekly update. There was a leaked timeline with an STI on it, I'm pretty sure. And it was a year or so after. It was like, fall of 2021, the new WRX was coming. And then fall of 2022 is when the new STI was supposed to come. So it was in the plans. It was in everyone's, mind that this is happening. And so there is some STI still just sitting in a warehouse in Japan somewhere that happened. It's pretty sure it was pretty much fully engineered at that point, if it was close to being ready when they killed it. There's a done STI that they just decided to completely pull the plug on for some reason. And I can't imagine spending that kind of engineering money and that kind of time and resources on a car that's already crash tested, already approved for America, already most likely would probably use the 2.4, so already has the engine certification. All the big expensive hurdles are already covered. And so I still cannot wrap my head around why they would cancel that. Unless, I mean, it's not an image thing because they still have the WRX, they still have the BRZ, so it's not like Subaru's, ashamed of the STI branding or performance cars or something. I don't think they would sell in large enough volumes to hurt their cafe numbers. From a fuel economy standpoint of them worried about, their fleet average being too low and getting fined by the government, I don't think that would be a big concern. And it's not like there's anything new on the horizon. They're like, oh, the next gen could potentially, have some type of STI like 2028 or something. So it just, I don't know. I would love to know what happened. I would so desperately love to know what happened, but it seems real shady to me. Like, if there's no good logical explanation to me, then it's like, okay, well, what was the game here? Like, why throw all that money away? Why blindside everyone? And how can you blindside everyone? I don't know. It's like it's one of those like great mysteries. Maybe one day we'll get some info on it. It's like the car equivalent of like UFO stuff, where it's like, are we ever gonna find out? And then like maybe someday someone will finally, say some stuff on it. But in the meantime, it will be a mystery. And let me see other member questions here. So Rafi says it's still surprising to see a handful of new WRXs on the road. Hopefully they bring something back. Yeah, WRXs are everywhere. They're selling really well. They're giving discounts at dealers because they're churning them out like crazy. There's a ton of them on the lot, and it's great. Two says if you never got press cars, Shelly for Toyota, what would your channel be like? Probably much like what it was prior to 2015, which would be car reviews from dealerships and then all the stuff that's offered to me from viewers. And honestly, I mean, looking back, I'd love to like run an alternate timeline simulation of like how the channel might have done if I would have stuck to that. Because I think a lot of people missed that stuff and, wish that I would have done more of that. I don't know if it would have been sustainable though, because all the dealerships that I work with don't always have fun cars, and driving, 5 to 10 hours away to keep filming everyone's personal vehicles would get expensive, and I would eventually run out of stuff there too. So I don't know how it would have progressed if I never had gone into the press car stuff and the OEM supported stuff like that. I don't know. It's a very interesting idea, but I'm assuming it would be probably pretty close to what that Dude in Blues channel would be like, aside from the builds. But I'm assuming that's kind of, because both of our channels kind of started very similarly, and then he went off into the build stuff a little bit, more than I did. But I think that we were very similar, and then we kind of diverged in different directions. He went more into the mod scene, and I went completely out of it essentially. So I think that Dude in Blues channel is probably close to what I would have done just without the mod stuff, most likely, as far as building race cars. I never wanted to build race cars and hack up everything to pieces and do all these builds. I know people would love to see me do that, but it's just like one of the last things I would want to do personally, just not me. So Rafi says they were just waiting for the announcement for the Toyota sponsorship. Tron Car Guy says the GR Corolla is like the Evos and the WRXs in their prime time. Yeah, that's totally, that was my thoughts as well in that review. I was saying that same thing. It really is the modern Evo and STI. And I'm so glad that even though Subaru dropped the ball big time and Mitsubishi dropped the ball a long time ago, I'm glad that Toyota has stepped in. I mean, who would have thought 10 years ago Toyota would be the one carrying the torch with a rear-wheel drive sports car and all-wheel drive hot hatch with a manual and the return of the Supra? Like, what a 180 it was for Toyota. And that's why I'm in love with Toyota right now, because how can you not love them with all the awesome stuff they're putting out and, carrying those torches that everyone else is refusing to carry now. It's great that GR Corolla has stepped in to fill that. Raphael, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, what do you think of pricing for Camaros once they're canceled? More expensive or better deals to sell the last of them? It seems like they're not building very many. The people that were commenting in the LT1 review were saying that, it's like they've been struggling to even find a new Camaro on the lot. So I think Chevy's not going to build a lot of them, and dealers are going to cling on to those last few, because even if they don't sell them this year or next year, you can say, hey, I've got a brand new 2024 Camaro, one of the last ones off the line here that it's been sitting in the showroom for a year and a half, but it could be yours, and kind of that whole thing. So I honestly think that we have not for all Camaros, but I think that as far as the 6th gen, I don't know if we've seen the bottom of pricing, but I think that we will see depreciation really slow down on those, because I don't think a lot of people realize that there is still a strong Camaro group that will not go for a Mustang. They will not go for a Challenger, and they will cling on to their Camaros probably forever, unless Chevy surprises us with an actual proper 7th gen with a gas V8 engine and 2 doors, which I would not hold your breath for. I think those people are going to really cherish those last Camaros. They're going to command high prices, and they're not going to sell them for pennies. They're going to always be desirable and sought after. And yeah, I think I would definitely not wait for a better deal on a Camaro unless you're just talking age and mileage, bringing them down price wise, for some of the least desirable ones down the road. But I think that Camaro values will hold pretty strong, most likely. And let me see. Simple and Yummy says, big ups to Toyota. Yeah, it's I love them. And Carlos, I missed your other comment here. He says, so I saw that you're getting more sponsors on your videos. Is that helping you more financially? Hopefully you can continue to get sponsors so it helps out the channel. Yeah, I mean, it definitely helps financially, especially with the weekly updates, because since those earn such little money, I mean, the weekly updates financially are a waste of time. I would make more money working in a fast food chain for the 2 days that I do those weekly updates, because it takes me 2 days to do that video. It's a complete waste of time financially. So the sponsors definitely help to justify keeping the weekly updates around. I mean, I keep doing them because I know you guys love them and I enjoy doing them still, but it would be much more beneficial for the channel if I just did an extra car review a week for those, and posted one on Fridays instead. Because the car reviews just keep getting views. That's the big difference. The weekly updates, it's old news after a week. And sometimes if it's got a sexy title, it'll keep going, for a little longer than a week or so. But most of the time, those weekly updates die like after the first week, and no one ever watches them again for the rest of the time. So that's where the problem is. You get that 10,000 views, make the a few bucks off of that, and then that's it, versus the weekly update or the car reviews, continuing to earn money for a long time. So yeah, I'm really going to try and get more and more sponsors on the weekly updates. I'd love to have a sponsor every week. But right now it's just, I don't have that many opportunities, but absolutely, I got to do more sponsorships to keep this channel going. It definitely is helpful. I mean, the views have gotten better this summer for sure on everything aside from the weekly updates, but the car reviews have really been doing better. I'm really happy about that. So I'm very thankful that the channel seems to be having a little bit of an upswing right now, and hopefully I can keep that momentum going. But as far as the weekly updates, they're not going anywhere. They haven't grown in viewership for the past, ever since I started doing them, basically. That was funny. For some reason, I was looking back at one of my very early weekly updates, just because I happened to type in a search term and it brought up one of those as one of the results. And it was hilarious how an old weekly update from 8 years ago got more views than the new ones do right now. So just something I thought was a good idea, and many of you love it as well, but it just never has caught on for whatever reason. But Baba, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, love your weekend updates. Is the MT82 hate versus Tremec justified? Do you think the new Mustangs are too gamified, remote rev gamer graphics? And thoughts on the SS1LE versus the 24 GT have been a sub since the BRZ days. Well, thank you so much for being a subscriber so long, and thank you again for the super chat. So as far as MT82 versus Tremec, I think that the hate on the MT82 is overblown. I don't think it's as bad as a lot of people make it out to be. I mean, I've had now 4 Mustangs with the MT82, never had any issues with any of them aside from the bullet locking me out of second gear whenever I was doing a red line shift a couple of times. Supposedly, some people have improved that with fluid changes as well. Some people have complained that, the MT82 is a little stiff whenever it's cold, and it's a little clunky when it's cold. But I drive the Bullet, obviously every time I get in it, it's a cold start, and driving it away, it's never given me any issues. I'm driving stock cars. So I think the real problem with the MT82 is once you start putting more power through it and you start modifying and changing everything where, maybe it gets some weak links. But if you're keeping it mostly stock, I think MT82 is fine. I really think that's been so overblown in my opinion, and just really silly how many people beat up on it personally. Tremec is great though. I mean, Tremec is just better based on feel as well as just being stouter overall, but the feel is just really good. I really love the Tremec. So if it's, like if you're shopping for S550 Mustangs and you're looking at, or if you're talking 24s, so you're talking like maybe you're going to go for a GT or a dark horse, it's hard to say without driving it, but if dark horse seems to basically just be a Mach 1 or a Bullet, essentially, is it, the Mach 1 had the Tremec too. I mean, I think it's a nice upgrade if you have the disposable, whatever it is, to jump up to a dark horse, $6 or $7 grand, maybe. But to me, I mean, it comes down to how you drive it and, what you're planning on doing with it. But if you're just going to have a fun daily driver, just get an MT82 Mustang, call it a day. I think the dark horse would be kind of overboard. It's fun. Again, if you have the disposable cash, go for it. But I think that you'll be totally fine in a regular GT. As far as whether they're too gamified, again, I have not driven it, so I can't say any actual experiences. I think the remote rev thing is a cool new toy. It's just going to come down to how you feel about revving at people, I guess, if that's your thing or not. The gamer graphics, I mean, it's fine. It doesn't make me excited, but I think that, again, we're really going for the younger generation with this new Mustang. And so those types of things, revving at people from across the parking lot sounds great, especially to, I believe, mostly those younger buyers. And the gamer graphics is, more appealing to those younger people as well. So I think, they made a choice. They decided to ditch all the retro stuff, ditch the historical, double bubble dash on the inside, throw out any kind of heritage for the Mustang, and just say, okay, let's just do, modern stuff. Let's pick a new name with Dark Horse and not call it the Mach 1 or something else, historical. Let's do new stuff. Let's, the most retro they have in the new Mustangs is the 80s inspired gauges. So they're going back to Fox body stuff for retro now. So, that shows you kind of the buyers they're going after. It's not the boomers anymore. It's not, any of that. It's they're going for people that remember the 80s ones at most, but mostly people that are, into the newer stuff. So that's going to come down to your personal preference. Personally, like I've said a few times before, I have no interest in the new Mustang. People have asked me if I'm going to trade the Bullet in for it. Absolutely not. Even if they did a new Bullet version, I still wouldn't go for a new Bullet version because I love mine. I think they just completely, in my opinion, just screwed up the interior. They left it carryover where they should have changed it. Like the doors are identical to the old car, identical. And so you have identical doors where they should have done something new. And then you have all the cool stuff like the nicely integrated screen and the nice metal switches. They threw all that out throughout, the nice metal volume knob, and you have these tiny little buttons, like 4 buttons, and, just a horrible setup, in my opinion, as far as the way it looks, at least. And no historical cues. Just the design on the inside is just horrible, in my opinion, personally. So I have no interest in the 24 Mustangs, and I will not have interest in them until they redesign the interior drastically, if they ever do. But I'm just really happy with the Bullet. But as far as your last question there, sorry for the long ramble. Thoughts on SS1LE versus the 24 GT? I think 1LE is more comparable, I guess, if you're talking like performance pack GT. I would say, without, again, having driven the new Mustang, unfortunately, what I can tell you is that it's going to be an enhanced S550 because that's what it is underneath. And my experience with the S550s, the Camaro is just a better handler. And someone said this in the comments, and while this might be a little bit of an exaggeration, the Camaro is a sports car and the Mustang's still a muscle car. And I think that they've enhanced the Mustang a lot, but I think that the Alpha platform on the Camaro is just still so much better. It's so much more agile. It's just more composed, and it was custom made for those vehicles. And it's just, I don't know. To me, it's just, I think Camaro's always been the better handler of the bunch, even with the last past generation here. And I don't anticipate that changing with a few tweaks to the S650 platform. So yeah, I don't know. I would say if you want the best handling, go for the SS1LE. If you want something a little softer and comfortable that has better visibility, and you want all the new stuff, in the new Mustang, then that could be the great choice as well. But I will also say, lastly, that an SS1LE is going to be so much cheaper with the prices going up on those Mustangs too. So comes down to how you feel about the stuff. But if you had to put a gun to my head and say choose between an SS1 Elite or a 24 GT, I would probably actually pick the Camaro because I just really despise that interior of the Mustang that much. And again, if you're looking for the best handling, SS is the way to go. So hopefully that helps you. Sorry for the long-winded answer there, and hopefully that gives you a little bit of extra, stuff to think about there in regards to your own decision making. But hopefully it helps. And if you have any follow-up questions, I'll try and keep an eye out for those as well here. But I want to get back to other member questions here. I don't want to miss. Let me see. Mike says, Matt, what vehicles are you most excited for in the future? I think right now the top one for me is the Hyundai Ioniq 5N. Really exciting to see, the paddle shifters in an EV and all the fake sounds, which I know sounds crazy to a lot of people. But to me, it's like really new and fresh and bold and daring and stuff that no one else has had the guts to really do yet. And so to me, that's what I'm really excited to test out next year. Otherwise, I mean, of the things that I kind of, we've heard are coming and that I'm assuming are going to be coming, I'm really excited also for the new Charger EV. I think that if they do that well and do it right, that could be awesome. So I'm really excited for that too. I'm also excited for, basically anything new that Toyota does, because I love the RAV4 Prime. And so, Tu's going to say, again, me being a Toyota shill here, but I love the RAV4 Prime. I love, the Prius Prime. They've done a great job with all of those. I'm excited for hopefully some type of, new Camry down the road, like we were talking about earlier, potentially, if there's a new Camry Prime, that would be, really exciting. 300 horsepower with instant electric boost in a Camry. It could be great. And I'm just excited for all that stuff. I'm excited, new Tacoma is going to be coming with a manual. Is great to see them again carrying the torch of the manual truck that no one else is doing aside from the Jeep Gladiator. But it's a lot of that kind of stuff I'm excited about as well. And I'm excited to see if there's any new developments for GR86 or BRZ down the road. I'm excited to see if there's any new developments for GR Corolla someday. There's the rumors of a GR Corolla motor in a BRZ 86, which if you saw how much I was flipping out over the GR Corolla motor and how much I love that little motor, that in a BRZ 86 might just make my brain explode. That would be amazing. So if that happens, that would be another one. Now that's probably gonna be like 2028 or something. If that does happen, that's another one though that I'm very much excited about the idea of. I think those are probably the top ones off the top of my head. Carlos says, I used to despise Toyota, but after the Supra and the new 86 came out, I started to like how they remembered their starting routes, and the new cars look great again. Yeah, I totally agree, Carlos. Hugo says, a Camaro Cross ZL1. That may end up happening, unfortunately. Mike says, how many views would the weekly update need to make financial sense? It's tough because, again, they don't continue to get views, and that's really the key for longevity on YouTube as a creator, I guess you could call it. It's just having money continuing to come in so that you're not living off of your next video. That's the only reason why I'm able to do this. If I was living off of the views that I got in the first week on whatever video, or some of these other YouTubers that aren't, in other spaces where they don't have evergreen stuff, where you're just a daily vlogger where no one's watching your old stuff, it's got to be tough, really, really tough, because it's like if you don't deliver, it's like you're starving that month. Versus with me, I have a little bit of a buffer because I've done 11 years of car reviews, and there's always going to be someone looking for a 2012 Scion TC review. It might be one person a day, but when you add up the hundreds of reviews that I've done over the past 11 years, it's enough to give me a little bit of a base. And so if you're someone who's like familiar with like a sales pay strategy where you have your base pay and then you have commission. Base pay is everything I've done from the past, 11 years here with the car reviews, versus commission is like all of the weekly updates are. They're like only the like commission type of thing because they, die off so fast. So I'd say for a weekly update to get equivalent views to what like a lifetime thing would make on, a car review, on like an average car review, what it's made over the past 10 years, or one of the early ones I've done or something. I would say I'd probably have to at least get the weekly updates up to like, I'd say at least 20 to 25,000 views for them to feel a little more worthwhile, each week, or, maybe 30 would be something that would be, kind of a comfortable, like, okay, like this definitely was like, worth my time. But so it is what it is. Again, I've already kind of accepted the fact that weekly updates are never going to go anywhere, and they have our a few thousand loyal viewers, and I'm very grateful for that. But I've kind of come to terms with the fact it's never going to go beyond that, at least without me doing like a full-blown like movie set background and 5 cameras and turn it into a major news network or something. Aside from something like that, it's never going to be big. And it's actually, so I can talk about this now. This would be a fun little behind the scenes thing for you, those of you who are on the live stream here. You get some inside scoop. There actually I was in talks with a producer for a show to do the weekly updates as a TV kind of thing, and the idea was to have like the weekly update and then also blend in like a shorter cut of a car review, and have a car review and a weekly update as one 30-minute segment basically. And they had actually even sourced a studio to do it. Like they didn't have any commitments or anything, but they had a studio lined up ready to film it. And I would either commute to Atlanta or Philly every week. Showed up, filmed, walked away, and then they would have handled all the editing, all the filming and everything. And I just show up and talk and leave. And it was basically like my dream goal of like where I would have loved to get the weekly updates to actually get them the quality that I think that they deserve, that I can't do on my own. It was close. We were in talks, and it was just something that it was months and months of going back and forth, and getting some optimistic, hearing, oh well, the upper executives are liking this or that, or whatever, and like slowly like making some progress, and then it ended up just falling apart for a few reasons I'm not allowed to talk about, but there is some stuff that ended up falling apart within that network that caused that to be one of the things that got killed off. It was, again, never a done deal or anything, but it was getting close. We were at a point where like it would have really been great for the channel financially, and it wouldn't have detracted from the channel because they still were going to allow me to upload them to the YouTube page as well. It would have just been in addition. And so I would have had these amazing TV quality weekly updates on here. And then also just be like, oh, and by the way, they're on this channel as well if you want to watch them at 5:00 on Friday or something, So it was going to be like my ultimate goal for those updates, and then that never happened. And no one's approached me about anything like that since. But that is really the goal for those, is getting them to some type of standpoint where someone else kind of does them, and I just show up and talk. And then they give it the production value that it needs. Yes, it was so close. That happened. It was about a year ago or so, and that ended up falling through. But would have been great. Anyway, but thanks for the question, Mike. And so there's some inside scoop for those of you that appreciate that kind of stuff. But Two says pretty soon to be Raid Shadow Legends. I've turned down some of those types of things. They have emailed me almost every month, asking if I want to do an ad for them, and I'm like, nope, not that desperate yet. But we will see. We'll see what happens. Maybe someday I will be that desperate. All right, so let me see. Another super chat. Sorry, I missed it earlier. Timothy, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, "Hi, Matt. I hope all is well. What is the softest riding car you'd recommend for less than 100 grand, excluding factors like reliability? Love your channel. Been a subscriber since the Subaru Legacy." Well, thanks for being a subscriber so long. I really appreciate it. Softest riding car for less than 100 grand. I gotta think. Give me a second to think about this. I'm kind of limited because I haven't driven everything in that segment, because most of those kind of videos don't do very well on my channel. So like I haven't driven the new S-Class. I haven't driven the new 7 Series. And I haven't even driven the new G90, because the last G90 video I did of the last generation got horrible views. So I was like, they offered me the new G90 and I was like, nope, I'm not going to bother reviewing it because no one's going to watch it. But I mean, the last G90 was really comfortable. That's the first thing that kind of sprung into my mind. Other stuff that's super comfy. I mean, it doesn't even have to be that expensive, but I mean, one car that I was really impressed with the comfort on was actually the Genesis G80 and the G80 Sport that I had it was about a year or so ago. The Sport one has 4-wheel steering. It's amazing handling and all the luxury you could want. And it is super smooth. And it's one of these few rare cars where I don't know how they made it handle as well as they did while still making it so amazingly soft and comfortable. Excuse me, but they did. And So that's another one. I'm just like, I mean, I think those max out at what, like 75 or something. So I mean, way under that budget of 100 grand. But I really like those, and it's also a little distinctive. So you're not having another 5 Series or E Class like everyone else on the block. I think that's kind of got some appeal. Again, I don't know how you feel about Genesis or the looks and all that. There's some other things there, but so yeah. And if you're not worried about reliability, then the Genesis won't really do you any favors there. But that is potentially a little more reliable than the Germans as well. But I'm trying to think of other stuff that's softest riding. I don't know. I mean, I was actually really impressed with the ride in the Toyota Grand Highlander. I mean, that's probably a little down market for what you're looking for, but you can get one of those maxed out at 60. But I mean, that was really soft and great for a family vehicle. I'm really coming up short here on answers for you, though. I apologize. I'm trying to think of other stuff. I mean, the safe bet though is, I mean, that's why everyone buys an S Class, because I feel like an S Class is probably going to be the gold standard. I mean, less than 100 grand, I mean, maybe you're not going to be able to buy a nice one these days. I think they start just under 100 if I remember correctly. But yeah, I'm sure the stuff that I haven't driven is probably going to be the best bet. Another one, it's more expensive, but you might be able to find one under 100 grand. But I was really impressed with the comfort in the Audi RS7 and the RS6 Avant. They've gotten a lot more expensive recently, but I would assume the S6 and the S7, which I haven't reviewed, but Audi does such a good job with their comfort, their ride comfort, even on the huge wheels like the RS6 that I had. I was like blown away that thing is so insanely comfortable in comfort mode, even with like 22-inch wheels. It's nuts. And the tires of that thing are like rubber bands, and it still is soft. It's just, again, mind blowing how they do it. But so if it were me, I'd probably go Audi. I think they actually are really some of the softest ones out there. Even if you're going for the S stuff, but if you go for the regular stuff like an A8, A7, A6, those all seem to be super nice and comfy too. So I really like the Audis, and they're one of the only companies that really works with me. Mercedes kind of gives me stuff sometimes. I mean, again, I'm not going to be biased and say we'll go for an Audi because they're the only company that likes working with me, but BMW won't give me the time of day, and Mercedes, again, is very limited. So with those two, it's hard for me to say. I can't recommend their products because I've never driven them, but I've driven most of the Audis, and they're all really nice. So take that as you will, but that's about all the insight I can give you. Unfortunately, I don't get into too much of the high end stuff too much, unfortunately, but hopefully that helps you at least a little bit. And thank you so much again for all the years of support and for the super chat. I really appreciate it. So let me see here. Other questions. I know I'm behind on the member questions here, so I don't want to fall too far behind. Simple and Yummy says, you got to film in the blue room again. The blue room is no more. My parents still live in that house, but they've repainted the room to like a more corally kind of color now. So the blue room is permanently gone, I'm sorry to say. But thanks for the throwback there. And Simple and Yummy also says, what's the biggest letdown when driving/reviewing older vehicles? Mine is just transmission. I really like my 8-speed automatic, and driving ones with only 6 feels ancient. Yeah, that's a good point. I think transmission is probably one of the biggest things that stands out these days. It's come so far from what it used to be. So many times you had to like wait around for a downshift, and you always had these guessing games of these transmissions that were so dim-witted. Now they're so smart and quick. And yeah, I think honestly, I'd probably agree with you. That's probably the thing. That and just the infotainment. Some of this stuff has aged horribly. Stuff where they're trying to be futuristic 10 years ago, and it's like, nope, you completely missed the mark. It's just crap, but there's some of that too. But I think infotainment and transmission are probably the top 2 things for sure. Because you look at performance, I mean, motors have certainly improved, but not with the gigantic leaps, I think, in refinement in performance like transmissions and of course infotainment systems have. So yeah, I think those are the same ones. Same opinion as you there, Simple and Yummy. Hugo says, do you think the Super Snake will come back on the new Mustang? Well, Super Snake is a Shelby American thing. That's not Ford. Shelby American's a separate side company that's an aftermarket company. So they, I think, already have one in the works. If they don't, I'm sure they will certainly do one soon. So yeah, Super Snake will almost certainly be coming back. As far as Shelby GT500, well, we will see. Ford seems to be ditching the historical heritage names, so they might throw Shelby out the window and just do something different. We will see. They seem a little less reverent about the names than they have in the past, so they may not do another Shelby. We'll see. And Raphael says, I like the new Mustang, but I just love the Camaro, and driving one, the visibility didn't bother me at all. That's great. Yeah, it's really something I think shouldn't be a deal breaker. For some people it is, and that's fine. But I think if you drive it enough and you get used to it, it's really not too bad. And yeah, shouldn't keep you out of a good car for sure. And Omar says, out of the previous generations, Civic Type R and WRX STI, is it worth paying more for a Type R looking into either one? So I would say if you care about fuel economy, Type R is going to be the way to go. STIs are just horrible with fuel economy. Civic Type R's also handle mods better. So if you're going to do any kind of power mods, STIs, that old EJ motor just is not good with reliability in general. And then you add mods into this equation, and it's just even worse. So I would say, I mean, they're fun. The STIs are fun. They're a blast to drive if you keep it stock. And if you keep it stock, STI is great. But and if you don't care about fuel economy, then they're great. But otherwise, Civic Type R is really good. The last generation, the FK8s are awesome. Especially the refresh, the way they redid the adaptive dampers to make it so soft in comfort mode. I think it's really impressive. So they're both really fun. But, if you don't need all-wheel drive, I'd say Type R is the better car, in my opinion. But hopefully that helps you a little bit, Omar. And Trent Cargo says, I'm happy that Toyota is picking up the slack for enthusiasts. I'd be excited if it weren't for the fact that one Toyota I had wasn't all that good. Well, that's understandable for sure. I mean, that's kind of my thing with Mini. They burned me the one time, and so I'd be a little iffy about going back to them. It's tough to get over that stuff for sure. He said that was before they changed their direction there. Mike says, would you ever drop the weekly update for a podcast, or you already feel it's sort of like that, not worth trying to grow that? So yeah, the podcast thing is something a lot of people have requested in the past for the weekly updates. The main reason why I haven't done them is because it's really hard to monetize podcasts. You got to go out and sell your own ads. And as I've seen, I've just shown with the sponsor thing there, I can maybe do one sponsor a month on those. There's not a ton of opportunities there. So it'd be, again, a situation where I'm doing all this work for the weekly update and not getting paid enough for it already. And then I'm getting zero, making extra time and effort, doing it as a podcast as well. The podcast thing could potentially grow it. You're right. If you're looking at growing strategies here for a way to maybe, grow things, that's possible. It's just, again, the time factor. I'm so tight on time already as it is. Like if I just downloaded the audio from the YouTube video and just uploaded that, like I could do that. But a lot of times I reference, this is what this car looks like. And I reference the visuals that are on screen. So I feel like to do it well, I would have to do a separate recording of like, here's the podcast version. Let me record this. And yes, that only takes maybe 30 minutes to, read through, a podcast version of that. But then I also don't love the idea of like making Spotify rich, because like Matt Farah was just tweeting a couple of weeks ago about how like Spotify doesn't pay him anything for the podcast he posts up, and yet they like dump a bunch of ads in it, make it a horrible experience for people, and then he's not getting paid any of that. So it's like a worse experience, and you don't get paid. Like it'd be one thing if like you're getting paid for all the ads, but if you're not getting paid for them and you're just making Spotify rich, then like and also like now with YouTube pushing for podcasts so much, it seems like YouTube's going to really develop that space more. So I'm hoping the experience for, people that listen to podcasts on a regular basis will get better with YouTube going forward. And I'm already kind of, again, in that. And so it has that duality of if you want to watch it, you can watch it. If you want to just listen to it, without the visuals, and you're okay with that, then I think, that'll kind of be the best way to do it. I've always recommended, if anyone that wanted it as a podcast, I just recommend, it sucks that you have to pay for it, but YouTube Premium allows you to listen to just the audio of a video. And so if you want to listen to that on your drive home or something, that's the way to do it. And I wish that there was a free way to do that. Maybe that'll be one of the things they open up with their pursuit of expanding the podcast scene on YouTube. But they're saying it's growing really fast now. They've kind of put some effort into it on YouTube with the podcast thing. So I'm hoping that that's something that, they can lean into more. And then the weekly updates can just be right there. And maybe someday that'll help to give them some extra growth there. But I really think it's an uphill battle with that. And I also see the Flip Biscuits also mentioning would shorter news videos be beneficial? I think they would. I think that's why no one else does this, because they all know that it's really tough and it's a waste of time and money, unfortunately. But that's why you'll see like Kirk does the shorter news snippets of just like one topic. And I could do that, but doing that and doing as many car reviews as I do is just impossible from a time standpoint. And I also, it'd be a lot of videos because like Kirk just does, I think, like Korean and Japanese stuff, and he only talks about like the more exciting stuff typically. So it's not as comprehensive of a rundown, even if you watch just all his videos on a playlist versus, me having like, here's the new special editions that came out this week. Here's the new pricing for this and that and the other, or whatever, like that whole comprehensive thing I wouldn't be able to do with shorter videos. I could do like a daily thing like Fastlane Daily used to do, but that again would be a lot of time and work. And then, if I'm spending all day doing that, then I have no time to do car reviews. And again, I would be putting time and money into doing shorter news videos that would have, again, the life of maybe a week or so, and then they drop off the face of the earth and no one ever sees them again. So it's really like, and I guess I should have figured this out a long time ago, and that's on me for not, but this is why everyone just does car reviews and only car reviews. And I think it also confuses the algorithm because the algorithm sees two separate things. They see people who watch the weekly updates that are like, oh, well, I, want to watch this entire weekly update and only the weekly updates and then ignore the car reviews. So then YouTube's like, oh no, well, this person doesn't actually like this channel that much. They only like this one video. So let's not push them all the other videos. And so it kind of just confuses the algorithm all the time. It seems like the algorithm likes whenever you stick to the same kind of thing and have the same viewer, the same kind of experience, the same kind of videos. And if you do different videos, do it on a separate channel. But I feel like I've come too far to just break them off into a whole separate channel. So it's like, I don't know. It's really a tough thing. Trust me. I'd love, more opinions on this. And this is something I could potentially maybe even do as a little community post and get some more feedback from everyone. So I'd be open to new ideas, but I feel like I've tried to look at this from every angle and figure out a way to make them better. And it just, I don't know. It just seems like no matter, I've tried different things. I've made the thumbnails more attractive. I've tried to make the titles as attractive as possible every week and try to, just juice them as much as I can, and it just seems like nothing's really, making any kind of dent. So, we'll see. I'll keep on trying and keep on doing it, but it's haven't found anything yet that works. And SF Onip says it would be really cool if you wrote a book about all this one day. Yeah, it'd be fun to do a book someday if I had enough people that would actually want to read about my life. It'd be very, very interesting, all the behind the scenes stuff. Trust me, there is so much behind the scenes, and it would be great to do a tell-all someday and look back on all this stuff. But I doubt I would ever be important enough for a book deal. But it'd be something I would definitely be up for if someone ever wanted to do that. And Yavinder says that Lexus ES is a soft rider. Getting back to the previous discussion a few minutes ago there. Yeah, ES is great. They're super comfy. All those Lexuses. The LS is great too. I have driven that. It's another one I forgot to mention earlier. LS is really a nice cruiser too. Challenger Chris says, I look forward to the weekly update. Watch it every Friday after my car cruise. And still feel that the car industry is a little stale. I think you need news flashes during the week. Yeah, that would be... If I had the time, it would definitely make more sense to do it more frequently, I think, because a lot of stuff does get stale. And I think also the last thing I'll say about the weekly updates, then I'll kind of move on here, is just that, I think it'll be interesting to see, because I think as we go more towards just all of the news being EVs, I know a lot of people just don't want to hear about that. And I think that's why the weekly updates have kind of declined in the past couple of years. They used to actually do higher reviews consistently. And I think people are just, they're like, they're not, like you're saying, they're not excited about the new stuff coming out. So why watch the video? So I think the weekly updates will someday get to a point where enough people I have to either get more EV fans on this channel, or it's just going to go off into oblivion where there's going to be 1,000 people that'll be excited about it every week, and that's it. And I'm just going to quit doing it at that point, because it's like I can only justify so much decline in those views before I'll just have to pull the plug. So we'll have to see. But I think if the car industry keeps going the way it is, yeah, it's going to get harder and harder to get people to click on those videos in the future. Sean says, Matt, not sure why a TV station hasn't approached you to re-air your weekly updates. Much better than watching infomercials. Yeah, I agree. I think the infomercials, the difference is they pay. Actually, that's one thing I did come across during all these TV discussions and stuff is, you can place videos very cheaply in those after hours where those infomercials are. I mean, it's insane how cheap it is to, do those infomercial placements, 3 a.m. on some random channel, it is really cheap. It's just like, is there actually any payoff there? Like, I'm probably better off putting, even if it's only like $30 or something, putting that towards some type of, promotional thing on, Facebook or YouTube instead of having, one random person with insomnia at 3 a.m., happening to flip through that channel and maybe stopping to watch it, but yeah, it'd be nice if they paid you for that stuff, but unfortunately, but it'd be nice if like Motor Trend Channel or something had a few slots they wanted to fill. It's not like it would be expensive; it'd just be extra money. It'd be great, but fortunately, nothing like that that I've heard of in the works. And Trent Car, I guess, I've heard that Lexus has a very smooth ride, even the older cars. Definitely very true. And Yavinder says that even the Toyota Avalon got a smooth ride. Avalon was pretty good. The last generation, though, was definitely sportier with its setup, so less comfy, I think, than the prior generation, but that's another good one for sure if you're going for the older one. And Trucking Car says he agrees about the Avalon. Rented one after I was let go from my previous job and had to drive home. I was surprised how smooth and quiet it was. Thing just floated down the road. Yeah, they are really nice. They're really comfortable. And you can even get adaptive dampers on them too, which was great. And Carlos says, I have a friend that has an STI. He just dropped $8,000 in mods, but the car doesn't feel much faster from stock. I was very surprised. Yeah, with those EJs, it is really tough to get a good payoff out of them. People love them. They love the sound. They love, the community and all that, and that's great. I think there's just so many good options these days that back whenever that was one of the only options, okay, but now they don't have that luxury of, being one of the only ones out there. And so now there's a lot more stuff. I think you get a lot better payoff performance wise, with especially if you want to mod it. And Trent Gargas says both my cars are 5 speeds. That's interesting. Although there's some 5 speeds that aren't that bad. I can't remember. I was driving something that was older a little while back, and I was like, oh, this actually isn't that bad. If the programming is good, then it's not too bad. Raphael says, I wonder if screens will stop cars from becoming classics. Think of a Porsche 356 now. Think of an iPhone 5. Yeah, I think this is kind of the debate that a lot of these interior designers are having. And I know, like, there was an interview with the guy that's designing Bugattis, and that was one of the things that they said. They're like, for the new next generation Bugatti, don't expect it to have any screens. He's like, the Chiron doesn't have any screens for a reason. He's like, these cars have to work in 50 years, was essentially, I'm paraphrasing here, but, he was saying, like, these things have to work in 50 years, and we're not convinced that all these things with screens are going to work in 50 years. Or at least not without, modified screens or having to swap screens or whatever. And when you're trying to preserve a car, especially its originality and all that stuff, that's not an option when you're talking about this high-end stuff. So that's why, like, Bugatti is not doing screens. And, you even see, it's pretty limited even with, like, the Lamborghinis and stuff. Like, with their actual supercars, you have the gauge cluster screen, but you don't have any kind of real center screen still, for those. I mean, they have a little one, but it's not anything crazy overboard. And so I think that'll be an interesting thing to keep an eye on. You look at, though, like, original Gallardos and stuff like that. I mean, I guess the original one had an old actual radio, but if you go to, like, the refresh Gallardos, the LP 560s and stuff like that, they had the screen. It was the Audi MMI thing that was terrible back then. Keep an eye on those and see how those kind of do as far as whether people just quit buying them or, if the values drop really fast or not, but I think, there's some of that will hurt their appeal, but I think there will still obviously be people who love those. I mean, and you can also see it go the other way. I mean, like, for example, you mentioned in the iPhone 5, I think just this past week, an original iPhone in the box, which obviously no one would actually want to use, it was a collectible, but an original iPhone, I think, went at auction for like $270,000 or something insane like that. So, I mean, there's maybe some appeal there someday down the road to be like, oh, look at how hilariously bad this graphic thing was in the old 2024 Mustangs. People were saying in 50 years, it might be like a charm thing of like, this is hilariously bad. And people like that for that reason. We're kind of seeing that a little bit with like the Radwood scene already, where it's like, these seats are hilarious, or this screen is or this, thing is terrible, where you have this equalizer on the radio, or, whatever little things there were back then. I think there's some of those type of things that might actually have some appeal. Now, it might be a pain if it's something that's terrible and you're relying on it for changing the climate control or something like that. But as far as the ones that are just doing infotainment stuff, I think there could be some, kind of fun throwback stuff, potential there down the road too. We'll have to see, but it's an interesting thing to think about. And thanks for bringing that up, Raphael. And Trent Car Guy says, unfortunately, the car market as a whole seems a bit dull with all the EVs, aside from the occasional exciting new vehicle. Yeah, and so that's the battle I'm facing here with the weekly updates. And Carlos is taking off for today. See you in 2 weeks. Hope you have a good week. Thank you so much, Carlos. I appreciate it. And maybe do a couple more questions here, and then I do have to go here as well. And Frosty says, what about making the weekly updates into a live stream? That's something that's I'm open to doing because then I don't have to do all the research and all the editing, and it can just be like, hey, let's just like read through all the interesting stories this week and discuss them, and that could be kind of fun. I just know that not everyone has 2 hours to sit through something, or even if I did it as a shorter thing, it still would end up probably taking longer if I'm having extra discussion and bouncing comments off of you guys and stuff. I think it would obviously lengthen out those videos. So it's an option though. That's something I have considered. And if it gets to a point where I can't justify spending 2 days to do a weekly update anymore, that'll probably be the plan B. Is just be like, okay, we'll still do a Friday afternoon live stream and we'll, talk about some of the new stuff there, have some discussion and blend what we're doing right now in with a weekly update kind of thing. And kind of do a little bit of that maybe, and see if something like that would make more sense from a time standpoint. And then of course that would be able to be rewatched later, so it could still be consumed like a weekly update for those who aren't able to join in live. But that's kind of been my plan B, and that may be the way this goes, again depending on how the weekly updates keep declining or whether they do or not. And Challenger Chris has the same idea here. And I mean, that's something, if you guys are open to that, I mean, that could be like the front runner in my mind as far as how to pivot these if, again, it gets to a point where it's not worth doing. But Timothy says, are you still a Subaru WRX fan? I am a fan of the old WRXs. Yes. The new one is a good car if you must have an all-wheel drive and a manual. But the one that I had, the press vehicle, it was like it had a rough idle. It wasn't very polished. I just was a little let down by the WRX after living with it for a week. It makes a pretty good impression on a test drive and stuff, but I'm not in love with the new one. I really still don't love the styling. The front end's fine, but the back end, it still makes me rage a little bit every time I think about the fact that there's more paint on the back bumper of a Crosstrek and an Outback Wilderness than there is on the WRX. I'm not going to get into that whole rant, but so I like old WRXs the best, but I'm a much bigger fan of GR Corollas and stuff like that these days. But Chandra Chris says interactive news update isn't a bad idea. Okay, so yeah, maybe that's something we could maybe do if people aren't opposed to a longer video. So let me see here. So Tim also says, how about keeping the channel about old school cars, use the existing fan base instead of chasing new EV fans? I mean, that's something I could do if I quit doing all the press cars and quit doing all the trips and stuff. The problem with that is that it's a lot more expensive to go out and film everyone's cars and be driving all over the country to film cars. Or hoping that the dealers that I work with get something interesting in. It's just not as sustainable. And I also have to keep in mind, I'm doing this channel for the views, but I have to keep my sanity. And to me, I can only rerun the same stuff over and over. I only film so many 350Zs. I can only film so many, of the old stuff, and I can only focus on that. That's a dead end street to me versus the new stuff. And I think there's a lot of new exciting stuff coming out these days. It might not be for everyone's taste, but nothing has ever been for everyone's taste. I could do a Camaro from 10 years ago and there'll still be a bunch of people that hate it in the comments because it's not a Mustang or a Challenger or whatever, so I think with the new stuff, there's always going to be people that don't like it. And, I'm personally fascinated by the new stuff coming out, and it's something that I want to focus on. But I definitely want to keep one foot in that old vintage world as well, and, review all the older stuff. And I will certainly, when fun opportunities come up and I have the time to go film them, I have a ton of stuff. I have a list of probably 30 cars waiting for me all over the country that are awesome cars, that are, older cars that I want to review someday, and I will get to them hopefully someday. But, so I do want to do a lot of those, but I think, the new stuff is really where the sustainability is. Because not only I'm not doing this channel just for the enthusiasts. The enthusiasts are a small group of people. The large group of people that keep this channel alive and keep me being able to do this full time are the car shoppers that are looking for the new Grand Highlander, that are looking for, the new CX-90 and all these vehicles. Those people are the ones that really, keep this channel going. Because otherwise, if I was just doing the enthusiast stuff, it'd be really tough because there's only so many people that can watch so many 350Z reviews before it gets old, or, whatever the case is. I'm just using that as an example, but it's tough. So I think doing the new stuff is definitely something I need to keep doing. again, doing this as my job. So let me see here. Maybe one or two more questions. I see Tom. Sorry, I missed your comment there. Tommy says, my friend has an FRS and wants to eventually get a 4-door. I want a 2-door. So we were thinking of swapping cars for a month. Your thoughts? I think that's a great idea. Yeah, as long as neither of you, as long as both of you trust, each other very well and all that, and you're not worried about someone else driving your car, totally swap and see, what you think. I think that'd be great to get a new experience under your belt, a different type of car, and see what you think. I think that'd be fun. Let me see. So, all right, I think there's a couple other questions here. And so Luke's saying maybe the live route would help. And are there possibly more sponsors for live content? I haven't yet to have anyone actually sponsor live stuff. But with the live streams here, I mean, it always comes down to, as far as the super chats and the member stuff and all that. But I mean, it's one of those things where the live streams might get close to, actually making more than the weekly updates. And so it's again, a better thing from a time standpoint as well, of having, just doing this for an hour or two. And if it, ends up, being just as profitable as a weekly update or something like that, then that could further justify that as well. But, it's just, honestly, it's not even about the money thing. It's just about trying to find a way to, have this grow and be successful with the weekly updates. And so if the live thing does that, then that could definitely be the way to go, so we'll have to see how things keep playing out here. I'm going to, definitely keep doing the weekly updates for a good long while here and see what happens. But over time, it's something I may, consider more doing the live thing. And I'm glad to see that some of you are open to that. That's definitely encouraging. So thanks for giving me your feedback there on that. And so anyway, let me see. So last comment here, I'll say Passport Brothers Business Class says the market moving to EV will mark the death of most YouTube car reviewers, as they won't be interesting to watch anymore. The supercar prices aren't going so high the average YouTuber can afford them. Yeah, aren't going so high the average YouTuber can't afford them. Yeah, so I think for a lot of those people that are doing the content stuff of just flipping cars every 6 months, yeah, it's going to be tough for them. But I mean, they can always just keep going back and build all the old stuff from the past 100 years as well. So I think most of those people, will probably be fine. It's just finding a new way to do it and not hopping on the bandwagon of whatever the hottest new car is, and instead just like, what's the hottest vintage thing that's trending right now, or whatever the case is. They'll find a way to make daily uploads about random stuff that's that doesn't really make much difference. I don't know how those daily vloggers keep it up. I respect them for the grind, but yeah, not my thing. But anyway, I'll leave it there at that. But thank you all so much for joining here for the live stream. I really appreciate all the support and for all the feedback, and for hearing me out here while I rant about random things as well. I appreciate it, and hopefully I help some of you as well with your questions there. And thank you all so much for your support, and stay tuned here for some more good videos here this week. There's going to be a fun one on Monday for sure. Those of you who are members already know, but that one will be one not to miss on Monday for sure. And then we're going to have the Land Cruiser reveal on Tuesday, so stay tuned for that. There's going to be some good stuff here coming up here this week. So yeah, stay tuned. Thank you all very much for watching. Have a great rest of your Sunday here, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.